Breaking news tonight, the coronavirus outbreak declared a global pandemic.
This virus is going to play havoc on the economic growth.
The great shutdown of 2020 is underway.
As the world remains at home, we're forced to come together, remotely of course, to find a new way to work. The watch industry is no different, and faced with global challenges, it has navigated unknown paths to great innovations. Whether it be pilots taking the air, the world returning from war, or a need for new technological change, the watch industry responds. Let's look back at some of the most important timepieces that came from periods of change. For from necessity comes innovation. Even the beginning of the wristwatch's popularity started from conflict. It was the Sino-Japanese War of 1894 and the Boer War of 1899 that saw soldiers begin to use makeshift lugs and straps to attach their pocket watches to their wrists for ease of use in battle. Shortly before all of this, in 1884, Leon Breitling began his company in Switzerland. His focus was the chronograph complication, and he dedicated much of his work to improving its accuracy. When Leon died in 1914, his son Gaston took over the company along with his father's obsession with the chronograph function. But the world of watches was changing, and wristwatches were becoming common among soldiers and even mandatory for some officers. (1914) also brought the beginning of World War I. Many new technologies were being used to fight battles, one of the most important being the airplane. In light of demand and necessity, Gaston Breitling produced one of the world's first chronograph wristwatches with a separate pusher for pilots to use during flights. The 30-minute counter was about the time a low-fuel mission would take, and it helped popularize the chronograph movement, opening the door for pilots' watches and the later popularized chronomat and navitimer collections. Meanwhile in Florence, Panerai created a highly luminous radium-based paint patented as Radiomir. The company already produced high-quality timekeeping instruments for the Italian Navy, and the paint helped with readouts. While extremely useful, it would also go on to be tragically deadly to those working closely with the radioactive paint. The application of this highly luminous material to their prototype Radiomir wristwatch in 1936 marked a major leap in the dive watch category since the waterproof Rolex Oyster in 1926. The innovation was so successful that when World War II started in 1938, the Italian Navy ordered production of the watches for its Frogmen Commandos, a group known for their underwater missions. With its overlapping dial plates, bright and clear perforated indices, and a metal lug bar, Panerai successfully showed the world how rugged dive watches can be. When World War II ended, Switzerland was mostly unscathed by the war. However, most companies have pivoted their productions to create tool watches for military contracts. The wristwatch had now become popular among militaries all over the world, leaving a gap in the civilian population. Enter Rolex with a plan to cater to a whole new consumer base. The financial upturn after the war in 1945, combined with the public's want for futurism and technological advance, made an ideal time for the Datejust to be released. It was the first watch with a date that jumped at midnight as opposed to slowly turning, and it quickly caught the eye of those looking to sport the increasingly popular accessory. Swiss watch brands began to really catch fire. Jaeger-LeCoultre created their first automatic watch, IWC had the Ingenieur, and Omega saw the release of the Seamaster. But Rolex soared in the booming 50s, releasing models like the Explorer, the Submariner, and the GMT Master. Rolex quickly became one of the most prolific watch brands and helped ignite a newfound want for wristwatches.
One of the most beautiful and useful of minerals is rock crystal or quartz. Professor Cady recognized the key to the hair-splitting accuracy which crystal controls provide today.
Flash forward to 1969. For some years, Swiss brands like Patek Philippe and Omega were looking to release the first quartz watch, but the Japanese brand Seiko released the first quartz timepiece called the Astron. Thus began the quartz crisis, or revolution, depending on who you ask. Desire for a much cheaper and far more accurate quartz watch exploded. Japan and the US both found huge success in newly researched quartz technology and electronics. But in Switzerland, a storm was brewing. By 1978, quartz watch popularity overtook mechanical watches. And by 1983, the Swiss industry had lost 2/3 of its workforce. It wasn't until Nicholas Hayek brought several brands under one roof, forming the Swatch Group, that the industry saw some recovery.
Swatch. Always different, always new.
The low-cost Swatch quartz watch funded the research and development of luxury brands. The play paid off, as Swatch became an instant success worldwide. But Hayek's plan still required proof of mechanical value to the public. Enter Seth G. Antwood in 1974. An American watch collector, he awarded a grant to famed watchmaker George Daniels to create a new escapement mechanism that could replace the centuries-old lever mechanism. A year later, Daniels did just that with the Co-Axial escapement that used radial force instead, presented inside an Omega Speedmaster. Daniels proved that even in the face of destruction, the watch industry still had plenty of tricks up its sleeve. Omega would implement the technology in 1999, going to employ the technology in many of their current models to this day. In 2014, people in the watch industry began to get nervous again. This time because of Apple's announcement of the brand new smartwatch. Was the industry looking at another quartz crisis? Was the mechanical watch doomed to lose against this new technology? As the information age's constant tech innovations seemed to threaten traditional ways of life, brands like FP Journe were showing that they were up for the challenge. That same year, they unveiled the Elegante, a quartz watch with a power-saving function. The traditional watchmaker, who always worked to evolve the concept of mechanical timepieces, created a completely new and beautiful way to execute the watch. Journe commented that even Breguet would embrace quartz if he could, and showed that the traditional mechanical or logical world could still combine with the 21st century's advancements. Throughout watch history, there have been people and brands who show how important innovation truly is to growth. In the midst of a global pandemic, things may seem or feel like there's no path forward. But we only have to look back at history to realize it's exactly in these times that creativity takes hold, thus begging the question, what's next?